We are live. How you doing, Mets fans? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with our latest pregame segment here as the Metropolitans kick off their second game of a three-game series and try to avoid their first series loss in what feels like literally weeks on end, this time to the San Francisco Giants in San Fran. So let's preview this matchup. Let's take a look at both these lineups. Let's take a look at the pitching matchup, and let's, of course, break down my picks and parlays of the night here as we have a three-game slate that just began with the Padres and Rockies. So I'm actually going to start today's segment not long into this one discussing my picks of the day because that game just started. I want to make sure you guys get in on the action should you wish with our amazing sponsor BetUS that you can check out by clicking the link down below to sign up today. That way you too get 125% bonus with not your first, not your second, but your first three deposits for all your sports betting needs. But folks, how you doing? Happy to have you all in here. I see Nody, Jets, Mets, Mama Worm, David West, how you doing? Milty, Yoshima, Carol, great members. Happy to have you all in here, and to everyone first watching on Twitter, thank you all so much as well. Make sure to hit that like, that follow button, that retweet button, but know that I will only be interacting with my live viewers here on YouTube as I typically do. Again, we have plenty to break down in this matchup. Watch the man. What's up, Triple Crown? How you doing, my man? Happy to have you in here as well. D-Ron, Rivera, absolute OG. Appreciate everybody being in here. And again, today I really want to emphasize in our pregame segment something that we're going to be as consistent as humanly possible with this season. I know it hasn't been as consistent as I would like to this point. I will also not be the only one hosting these pregame shows this year, so it's been a lot of really juggling back and forth on my end, getting everything acclimated with my schedule and making sure everything's lined up properly. But I got the lineups for you here. Let's see how the Mets do today after faltering last night by a final score of 5-2, which no one wanted to be in the postgame segment yesterday, and I didn't blame them. There really wasn't much positives to discuss in Mets land yesterday, and there's already a bunch of positives to discuss today prior to the Mets game even beginning that has to do with the Syracuse Mets, headlined by Christian Scott, the Mets' top pitching prospect. I'm going to share some thoughts on here shortly, along with JD Martinez, who is now just a couple days away from making his long-awaited, highly anticipated Mets season debut as soon as this Friday once the Mets are back home from their away trip and kick off their multi-game stand against the St. Louis Cardinals. I am watching the Ranger game. Of course, I got it on the background. Rangers up 3-2 as the Capitals take a power play here with just over 3 minutes left in the second. My Ranger fans, shout out to you. My Islander fans, I'm sorry for your loss, which was that 3-0 deficit, unfortunately, that you blew yesterday. To my Knicks fans, shout out to every single one of you, but I understand if you're not a fan of those teams, they don't want to hear me talk about them, and I completely understand and respect that. But folks, I do want to break down again what is happening in Mets land right now, and it starts with what we see in Syracuse as the Rangers just took a 4-2 lead, but I'm not going to make this a Rangers show. This is a Mets pregame segment for a reason, but love to see the goal there by whoever it was. I think it was Keandre Miller. No less, folks, let's break it down because, yes, the Syracuse Mets today, they're up the last time I saw. A bunch of these games are being broadcasted by SNY this year, which is also awesome. Not something that we have seen as much in years past for AAA games, AA games, single A games. SNY has a variety of games that they will be broadcasting this year, including the game that we've been seeing today, if I'm not mistaken. And what's great too is that Christian Scott, the Mets' top pitching prospect, continues to look like a guy that, again, it's not a matter of if, but when he will be impacting this Mets rotation this year with the way that he has been chucking the ball. When I tell you that Christian Scott, guys, has pretty much done everything in his power to be in this Metropolitan rotation, I cannot emphasize that enough. His final line today is as follows: 6.1 innings of one hit, 2-run ball, because he did give up a bomb, something that he has struggled with a little bit at the AAA level. Not anything I'm concerned with, because as soon as he gives up the bomb, nothing else happens afterwards. He retires the ensuing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7... Going all the way down the list, 18 consecutive batters in a row is what Christian Scott retired. 8 strikeouts on the day, just 1 hit allowed, as I mentioned, 1 walk, 2. Christian Scott has struck out 34 batters this year to a whopping 4-walk ratio. Yes, you heard that correctly. Christian Scott hasn't even walked the amount of guys that you can count on my hand, yet has struck out over 30 batters already this season. He has been one of the best hurlers in not only AAA, but minor league baseball as a whole, as a man that sits what am I even saying here? mid-90s with the fastball, but with the off-speed and breaking stuff, it is an absolute thing of beauty. Christian Scott is doing everything in his power to be called up by the Mets, and now we're reaching a decision with the lack of production from Adrian Hauser, with the continued struggles that we've seen with others in this rotation, like Jose Quintana. Again, guys that just are not going deep into games. Their walk rates are up. Christian Scott's walk rates have been down. The strikeout rate has been through the roof. And this is a guy that we all know is going to have a positive impact on this rotation. And he's doing everything before our very eyes at the minor league level to say, hey, when is this guy going to get called up? I think it's a great conversation to have. And my response to this is, I think as each passing day goes and as Christian Scott continues to do what Christian Scott does in Syracuse, this man needs to be up ASAP. You know, I'm all for not rushing the kids, and that's why you have the likes of, again, Tyler McGill once he's back off the injured list. Joey Fuego there that did well against these same San Francisco Giants a year ago in San Fran, where he pitched one of the best starts the Mets had from any starter last season, where I'm pretty sure he won 6 or 7 shutty. He was nasty. He was striking out everyone and their mother, including J.D. Davis when he was on the team at the time. Just a lot of good was happening there with Joey Fuego this time last year, but he's available for you. Max Kranick, who of course is a young right-hander that was on the injured list, is ramping up in the minor leagues too. That's another option. But then you of course have the Christian Scotts, the Mike Vassals of the world, guys that we know can impact the Mets this year, but when are they going to get called upon? Well, Christian Scott's swing and miss stuff is looking so disgusting right now that I think it would almost be foolish for the Mets if they do not find themselves having deep, thorough discussions, which they of course do every day. David Stearns and Mendoza had said it themselves. They heavily evaluate minor leagues and their top prospects, but Christian Scott is a guy to keep an eye on, folks, because at this point, I need to make sure I have my thumbnail ready, because I fully expect Scott to be called up at some point within the next month and a half. With the way that he's pitching right now, it would just be silly not to if you're the Mets, because he's proving everything you want him to prove at the AAA level. You're not sacrificing much by bringing him up at this point in the season either. So really, it kind of comes down to, when are the Mets comfortable to give their top prospect a shot? And that's something, as again, with each passing day happening, we're getting closer and closer to that time frame. JD Martinez will be up with the Mets as soon as this Friday, and before he gets there, he's going to have a little stint in AAA Syracuse, gets a start today, batting third at DH, and he rips an RBI single in the 8th inning to increase the Syracuse Mets lead. JD Martinez, that was the lone hit that I believe he's had so far today, but again, he's a guy that will be impacting the Mets plenty this season, as we know, one of the top sluggers in Major League Baseball when he is healthy and when that cortisone shot in the back is working properly, and he's a guy that we're very excited to see the highly anticipated, long-awaited debut, however you want to go about the wordplay there. Craig looked great in spring. Yes, he did. Yes, he absolutely did, and he's looked sharp so far when ramping up in the minor leagues. I like Max Kranick, not just because I've had some nice friendly conversations with him on Twitter, but just because he seems like a guy that actually can impact the Mets, either as a multi-inning reliever or as a guy that they can utilize as, say, a starter for, say, 3 to 5 innings. It's one of those things where the Mets do have plenty internal options. Now it's the matter of, when does it make most sense to bring up A, B, C, D, all the way to F option? You don't want to have to get an F, but of course, what you do want to get to is at minimum your CD options, because your CD options right now is a Christian Scott, a Mike Vassal. These are guys we know at minimum Scott to impact the Mets and this rotation this year. It's just a matter of when, not if. So again, if I'm a betting man with the way that Scott's pitching, the way that the Mets are going to continue to flunder pitching, we're going to see. Again, folks, I know it's been easy going so far this season outside the first 5 games, but Mets pitching is absolutely going to get exposed. Losing, again, guys that we have, the lack of consistency we've had with guys being able to go deep into games, how the Mets have lucked off in many of their opportunities this season, with Adrian Hauser somehow escaping jams like Houdini against some subpar, I shouldn't say subpar teams, because the Mets have played above 500 teams every single series up until this Giants matchup now. But we do know that the Mets have clear flaws with their rotation. While they have been effective, we know that we don't have many guys that have great put-out pitches. We know we have not many guys that have elite stuff in their arsenal. Christian Scott has a lot of great stuff in his arsenal. And that, along with Kodai Senga's lack of availability that we're not going to have until, at minimum, we're going to see there the NMA, which is likely going to be sometime in June, where Senga finally makes his highly anticipated, long-awaited season debut, coming off the IL there with the shoulder injury. He is someone that, until we have him impacting this rotation, the Mets are going to need some help. And that's where Christian Scott makes an endless amount of sense as long as they deem he's not being rushed up. So that's the latest I'll share on the Christian Scott and JD Martinez front. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide, watching live and people watching replay, where do you stand in regards to that? When would you like to see a Christian Scott type prospect be called up and why? Let me know in the live chat. And again, I appreciate everyone first taking the time to watch live on a replay here. To everyone watching on Twitter, thank you all so much as well. Make sure that follow, that retweet button, all that stuff really does mean the world to me. And we're going to get on next with my picks of the day before we break down a bit on the lineups here in the pitching matchup, because these picks, again, as I mentioned, the Padres game already started, so it's perfectly fine if you don't want to tail that as part of my parlay, because you have to live bet then, and I'm not sure if you compare that with the other bets that have yet to begin, but I digress. We'll get into that here in a second, so just bear with me, everybody. Let me hear. And also, folks, if you didn't see already, I was live on Bleacher Report earlier today. BR at myself and Steve Perot. We are no longer doing the home run segments. That was very short-lived. Honestly, not sure why, but we're not doing the weekly home run segments anymore with BR. Things are ever changed with BR and kind of the type of baseball content that they want out there. But we did have a segment today, which was breaking down all the hot button topics in MLB currently. So if you go to the BR app and if you go to MLB News, like I'm doing right here, you'll be able to find us, as you see right there, as we're breaking down here our early MVP picks for the National and the American League. You can check down the app. We also broke down Aaron Boone being thrown out of the Yanks game yesterday or so, which was hilarious. Why exactly did that happen? The context behind it. We also talked about the Mets. Are they for real? Are they officially back after that 0-5 start? The Dodgers, are they overrated this season? Is the AL East the most difficult division in Major League Baseball, or is it the NL West or something else? All that and in between is what we covered, so make sure to check that out again by just going to the Bleacher Report app, going to MLB News, scroll, and you will find my man Steve Perot and I breaking it all down. Steve Perot, rather. I always say Perot because I think of hockey names, and that goes in hand, especially if you're French-Canadian. But that's enough of me ranting. Let's talk a bit, folks. What happened, bro? We're doing... Bro, you were doing good. What happened, Mike? What did I miss, Mike? Enlighten me. Did something happen? If so, let me know in the chat. Daniel, great member. How you doing? Happy to have you in here. Philly killed your parlay today. I'm sorry to hear that, but that's why you don't. That's why you don't parlay Philly. What channel is the game on tonight? The game should be on SNY, and of course Giants broadcast as well. But as we take a look at my picks of the day, folks, let's emphasize here 2 out of the 3 picks with that Padres game already having started. And again, this is for my sports bettors out there that, of course, know how to bet responsibly, are doing active things with our great friends at BetUS in particular, which is the official sports book here of WardyNYM. And as you see here, my picks of the day are as follows, folks. There are 3 that stand out to me with the remainder of the games currently available. You got the Mets, you got the Orioles, you got the Padres. Again, the Padres game has officially started, so it's on picks 11 regarding the game. Happy to hear that. Thank you so much. Had a nice couple series there for sure, Mike. We'll get back on a roll. I'm confident that we will, and hopefully it starts tonight, folks. And I absolutely love these 3 picks right now. If you parlayed them, if you had the same slate before the Padres game started, if you put down $10, it was to win 55, so the odds were very solid. The odds have changed slightly since then. The Orioles are now at -150. Mets are still right around +123. But here you go, folks. The Orioles today facing off against the Halos there. I absolutely love the Baltimore Orioles all season long. You're going to see me pick them quite often because of just how much I think they're an absolute wagon. Headlined by the Milkman and Colin Cowser, as we know. Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, who I think is absolutely going to be an MVP caliber player this year out of the AL, and Jackson Holliday is still trying to find his game. That's fine. They have so many amazing pieces in between those two as well, so a lot of great things going on with the O's. -150 odds or so against the Halos. Love that, hammering that money line. Mets are the underdog by a decent amount today against the Giants, and I gotta say, I know we're facing Logan Webb. I know Logan Webb is a Cy Young caliber pitcher, but just because Logan Webb's a Cy Young caliber pitcher doesn't mean the Mets can't win this ball game in this scenario where, say, hey, Webb works them in the first 5-6 innings and then they tack on late like we saw yesterday against Duvall. It was just too little too late. The Mets can get any early offense against Webb. I certainly like their odds today. It's really going to come down to Luis Severino, and is he going to completely implode, or is he going to give us another outing similar to the last time he was on the bump, where it looks like Sevy has consistently gotten better pretty much with each passing start. So Mets at plus 123 odds, which means if you deposit 123 bucks and the Mets win outright, you come out with an additional 100 to work with. It's that simple. Padres, of course, Padres, of course, there we see a money line at minus 140. Of course, that is ever changing. It's a live bet now that the game has started against the Rockies. But again, whether you want to tail one pick, you want to tail two, you want to tail three, or you don't want to deal with either, that's fine. But these are my picks and plays of the day, folks. I really, really love the Baltimore Orioles matchup against the Halos here. And the Mets, of course, at them plus 123 against the Giants. I mean, not only just as a Mets fan, but as someone who knows kind of the ebbs and flows in the way that they've been playing. Yes, I have a level of concern with this being game 2 of the series where they've had a lack of luck so far this season. And yes, I do have concern levels against Logan Webb today. But having said all that, I think that if you are a bettor and you love to get in on the money lines, the spreads, late game action, it's really silly not to pass up. It's really silly, rather, to pass up these slates. So I'm going to go again. O's, Mets, Padres. I have them right now 10 to win 55. And I also have the Mets there outright on money line as well for a separate bet. So I'm wishing you all the best of luck to everybody today that gets in on their betting action with our great friends at BetUS. And of course, make sure to let me know how you do. If you end up tailing my picks, if you go with different picks, if you guys also have your own betting opinions that are separate from mine, feel free to share them in the chat too. I would love to hear them, okay? I'm no betting expert. Again, I, of course, will say take some of the things I say with a grain of salt. Go at your own risk, of course. But I certainly love these picks tonight. And even when you have everything right, nothing's guaranteed because that's why you're betting. It's always a gamble at the end of the day. So, of course, bet responsibly. I wish you all the best of luck with your slates today and your bets going forward here this week, hopefully with our amazing friends at BetUS. But we talked about our picks and plays of the day, folks. Now let's get into the lineups because as you see here, we got left, we got right. Let's start here with the San Francisco Giants. Jun-Hoo Lee, of course, the big $100+ million man coming over from the KBO. They view him as the Korean Tony Gwynn over there, apparently. Jun-Hoo Lee, of course, kicking off his MLB career with a 729 OPS, bats leadoff, and will command center field for the San Francisco Giants. Batting second is Lamont Wade Jr. at a 925 OPS. A hot start there for Lamont Wade Jr. at first base. Batting third, it was the highly desired slugger, including myself and many Mets fans this offseason, Jorge Soler, just under 800 OPS at DH. Michael Conforto, one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball that is no longer a New York Metropolitan, will always be a diehard fan of Michael's unless he goes on and kills it with the Braves or the Phillies or something, which, knocking on wood, God forbid that never happens. Michael Conforto, after ripping a absolute nuke, which was a middle hanger by Jose Quintana yesterday, continues to look to swing the bat well, batting fourth today, 817 OPS for the corner outfielder. Matt Chapman, who I think is going to continue to regress, not only as the year goes on, but as his career goes on. Chapman, I've loved him for many years, but there's just so many clear flaws in his game, and he's not the consistent platinum glove he used to be. Chapman was 710 OPS and very much a lefty lover when facing pitching, not so much righties that we're seeing early on this year. Luis Severino, I hope, can take advantage and not throw meatballs there. He gets to start there in the hot corner. Patrick Bailey, yes, not Joey Bart that many thought would be the heir apparent to Buster Posey, for example. No, Patrick Bailey with a 915 OPS gets the start there at the backstop. He has been a revelation there at the catching spot for the San Francisco Giants, and now they move forward without Joey Bart, who has since been traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates over the past month or two. Now, Joey Bart, of course, former top prospect for the Giants, ended up becoming a big bust for them early on and is trying to establish himself now in a new organization there with the Pirates. We see batting seventh, Taro Estrada, the utility infielder, playing second base today with a 623 OPS. Mike Yastrzemski, who unfortunately has fallen off a cliff quite a bit over the past couple of years, he has with a 519 OPS commanding right field. And Nick Ahmed, who killed the Mets yesterday, batting ninth today with his just sub 700 OPS at shortstop. Logan Webb, of course, is going to be your starter there for the San Francisco Giants. Logan Webb, as I mentioned, a Cy Young caliber pitcher coming out of that Giants organization this year. I mean, take your pick. There's a lot of great players there in the National League that can be Cy Young caliber starters this year. Logan Webb will once again find himself in that discussion. Webb with a 2.93 ERA. 4.75 expected numbers, however, something to look at. So what does that exactly tell you in regards to Logan Webb? He has had some luck on his side. The same way Luis Severino with a 2.14 ERA and a 3.88 expected ERA tells you he's had luck on his side because he's had, at times, better defense behind him that has bailed him out, and that certainly doesn't hurt. As we take a look at the Mets offense today, it is as follows. Brandon Nimmo commanding center, which is a little bit of a rarity. Not going to see that as often this season. He commands center field today with just under 700 OPS. He's now batting the Mendoza line on the season. Brandon's looking to barrel some baseballs, and hopefully they start today against Logan Webb and these Giants. Starling Marte coming off of a 2-hit RBI game. Not RBI game yesterday, but did have himself a multi-hit game. 781 OPS, looking great with the average too. Commanding right field today. Excited to see Marte hopefully continue to grind out and look great with his at-bats, because Starling Marte continues to look more and more like the all-star we saw in 2022, and not the man that couldn't even do any horizontal lateral movement with those hips that we saw in the outfield, walking at times too, as he was coming back from those serious injuries and ailments. Francisco Lindor, I actually have a level of concern with today. This is not a good matchup for him against Logan Webb, so hopefully Lindor can show he's continuing to swing well from the left side of the plate. He has a 561 OPS on the year. He will, of course, be batting from the left side to kick off the game against Webb. He commands short. Pete Alonso. Pete, again, looking to continue to swing the bat well, which he has. Had himself a bomb yesterday, but did also have an infield pop-up when the Mets need to convert with runners in scoring position. That was like the lone opportunity they had in the 7th inning yesterday, and they did nothing with it. They squandered that opportunity, unfortunately. Alonso with 847 OPS, batting fourth today in the first base. Brett Beatty. Brett is looking to really get himself back from coming back from injury. If you look at Beatty's peripherals, they really aren't great. He struggles to lift the ball still. The ground ball rates are still high, but Beatty's at-bats have definitely looked more quality after his first at-bat yesterday. Hopefully he can command a hot corner today defensively, which we have seen plenty, and get that confidence built up a little bit back. We know it's there, but just missing the stretch of games with an ailment when you're absolutely on a heater, when you're getting on base every single game, can throw a wrench into things. So hopefully we see Beatty again get off on the right foot today and not be a double play merchant. DJ Stewart, of course, doing our best Kyle Schwarber impression for us. We're loving him, batting right around the Mendoza line with a 900 to 1,000 OPS, 892 to be exact there, batting 6th for the Mets. Batting 7th is Jeff McNeil, who had a bad day at the plate yesterday, looking to bounce back where he usually has had success in his home state of California. McNeil with a 697 OPS, commanding left field today. Yes, you heard that correctly. Tyrone Taylor and Harrison Bader will be made available off the bench for the Mets, which I promise you they will tap into later on in the ball game, should it, not be a game where everyone's thriving, where it doesn't warrant that decision be made. The reason why I say that is when you got guys like Joey Wendell batting 8th, where Joey hasn't been bad with the bat per se, but it's like, how much are you really getting with him? Is his defense going to be negative today? That's something we have to monitor heavily, because if it is, get his ass out of there. We cannot have a guy that's supposed to be on the team as your utility option and command multiple infield spots as a defensive downside and not a defensive upside. He already has 4 errors and just a handful of starts he's had this year. You got to be better, Joey. Hopefully that continues today. Omar Narvaez, which I think we're all fed up with already. Narvaez is a net negative defensive and offensive player. Hopefully we can see him turn things around a bit today. And again, give some solid frame jobs to Sevy, please, and hopefully put the ball in play a time or two. And again, be productive for the Mets. That's what we want to see from a guy who opted into an $8 million contract. Thank you, Billy Upler. Unfortunately, for the 2024 season. So that's what you have at lineup, everybody. Now, I got to ask you, folks, when you look at the lineup in particular tonight, how do you feel about it? Also, Drew Gilbert injured. Yes, that is happening. Drew Gilbert is on the IL, which sucks. Also, I did see that Nate Lavender, we all love Lavender, right? Who looked great in spring training, is on the 7-day IL in Syracuse. We know that in the case of Drew Gilbert, he's going to be out for an extended period of time. So hopefully Drew heals up well, and there's nothing too concerning on that front. I shouldn't say overly extensive, but again, Drew was a guy that we initially expected to impact the Mets at some point in the season. I still foresee that to be the case, but now we're at this current rate, we're looking at more towards the tail end of the season, barring any injuries of significance, obviously, knock on wood. But give me a yay or a nay in the chat right now, folks. How do you feel about tonight's lineup for the Mets? If it's a yay, give me a simple yay or a thumbs up. If it's a yay, give me a simple nay or a thumbs down here in the live show. And everyone first watching live on a replay, happy to have you all in here as we break down the latest in Mets land, as they're about to kick off their second game of a 3-game set against the San Francisco Giants tonight, as they were unfortunately defeated yesterday by a final score of 5-2. That was headlined by fantastic pitching by Keaton Wynn, who went 6 strong, only allowing 1 earned run against the Mets. The bullpen getting the job done there for San Fran. San Fran didn't have the best defense, but again, they did what they needed to do. Mets bats were asleep yesterday at the wheel, unfortunately, for a second straight day. I don't know if the travel from LA or San Fran had anything to do with it. It certainly may have to a degree, but ultimately the Mets flustered big time. Quintana gave up a couple runs in the first 2 innings. First 3 innings, he had a 1-2-3 first. Or he had a scoreless first. Then after that, he gave up runs in the second and the third. Walk rate was up, of course. Gave up 5 over 5, 4.21 ERA on the year. Not a great game for the Mets yesterday, all things considered. But let me know how you feel about this right now. 1-7, yay, says David. Okay, that's fair. Let's see. Thumbs down says Elephant. Ricky says yay. D-Ron says yay. Victor says nay. I love the differences in the chat, too. That's what makes it fun. Let me know why you guys either like or dislike tonight's lineup, and we could talk about it a bit more. Let's see. You guys are talking about Mendoza. I do like Mendoza quite a bit, too. I like Mendoza's straightforwardness as a manager. He doesn't beat around the bush. Speaking of which, because Mendoza was really gutted when he found out the news of Francisco Alvarez and his injury, I would just like to inform you all, in case you weren't aware, that officially Alvarez has underwent surgery for that thumb issue, that UCL area there. He is going to miss approximately right around 8 weeks. Of course, best case scenario, it's 6 weeks. But right now, we're looking at least 8 weeks where your starting catchers, as things currently stand, consist of Omar Narvaez, who I disagree with starting today, but obviously there's reasons behind it, and Tomas Nido, who I think Tomas Nido, and this is something funny enough, I have a complete different opinion on, because I saw yesterday, of course, I'm not the only one that goes live for my post-game coverage. Other people do it too. I saw Evan for the fan yesterday was speaking on the Mets game, recapping it, and he was very much in favor of Omar Narvaez playing more often than not than Nido, and I could not disagree more. And the simple reason why, the Mets do not need to rely on their catcher as things currently stand to provide endless amount of offense that we get when things are going right with Alvarez. It's a blessing, but not something that we necessarily need every time, versus a Narvaez who there's no guarantee on the offensive end. One, we've seen that early on. Even when he barrels the ball well, he's had some bad luck, and again, that goes in hand because he hasn't done anything defensively. When Narvaez has had a 3-hit game, he's given up those hits via runs to the opposing team because he couldn't play competent defense as a catcher. So Narvaez is far more of a net negative player than I'd argue than Tomas Nido, where Nido, even if he is, say, the equivalent of, a pylon, a standing duck there, batting, which he did have himself a hit there in that series against the Dodgers, Nido's eye as a catcher, eye with the pitcher, his frame jobs, his defensive ability is just so far and away better that I think that in itself is superior enough with a pitching staff that can use as much help as possible, why you should warrant having Nido play more often than not than Narvaez. That's just my humble opinion. I understand people's opinions otherwise. However, I am head-scratching at the thought of really wanting Narvaez getting significantly more playing time than Nido. I think that's a silly notion. I think it's going to lead to a lack of success for the Mets. I think you're going to continue to see them labor on the pitching end, where the things that have been as exposed to the degree as you'd expect early on this season because of Narvaez's great defensive ability with stealing strikes away, you're going to see it amplified now more than ever when Narvaez catching. I promise you will see it again tonight as he's catching Luis Severino there. Wardy, now that we look back, was the Lindor trade worth it? I mean, the fact that you even question such a thing with what the Mets gave up is the silliest thing in my mind. I mean, let me put it this way. Let me reverse it back to you. Just assuming that this question goes in hand with Lindor's underwhelming start to the season. Here's my reply back, assuming that's true. If not, I apologize then. In essence, yes, every day of the week I'm doing that Lindor trade. But in simple terms, do you think Lindor being a 6-WAR player, the best shortstop in National League last year, and a 6-WAR player in the past 2 seasons for the Mets is more important than his slow start this season? Because for me, sample size is important. I'm taking big sample sizes over small sample sizes. And big sample sizes tell me, yes, those are more important. So that in itself answers the question. Yes, every day of the week, I'm 100% taking Lindor over Andres Gimenez, who's going to be nothing more than at absolute best a gap-to-gap hitter. You're going to have there in Ahmad Rosario, who's killing it with the Tampa Bay Rays because Tampa has found something about his game that Cleveland wasn't able to figure out. Not overly shocking, Cleveland has never been known for their prowess on the offensive end as they have been known for their pitching, whereas the Rays have really been able to find the best out of both those categories of players. Because if you look for Cleveland, outside of some great contact hitters and an elite, arguably the best third baseman in baseball, and Jose Ramirez, they don't got a whole lot to give there of consistency offensively. The Rays every single year churn out talent, and now it's been Ahmad Rosario who's batting like 350 with a 1,000 OPS around there, 2 home runs already, 11 plus RBIs. He's looking great. I was just looking at Rosie's numbers earlier. I'm very happy for him. And then you look at the prospects the Mets traded, and Josh Wolf, and there's one other I'm blanking. They're currently, not to be rude, but currently they're nobodies, right? You know, I'm, again, doing that trade every day of the week. He's great, but we could have kept Jimenez and had Jet Williams and Acuna Jr. Here's the thing, my man. If the Mets kept Jimenez, there would be no Jet Williams. So let's start there. There would be no Acuna Jr. because the organization would have been ran differently. You can't have the mindset that, oh, if we didn't do this trade, then things would continue as such. No, the Mets didn't trade for Lindor. I promise you, Jimenez probably gets traded elsewhere in a bigger package for a different type of position player. That was the type of mindset the Mets had at the time under Jared Porter, and continued that mindset under Zach Scott during his time as acting GM. So, and even then, like, what are we even talking about? I don't care if we would have Jimenez, Williams, and Acuna. You want to know why? None of those three are ever going to amount to be the player that Francisco Lindor currently is. That's true. Jet Williams, even at the absolute best of his career, is never going to be a Francisco Lindor type player. Same thing can be said with Acuna Jr., and I feel very strongly in that. Just because they're top prospects does not mean that they're going to equate to the level. On top of that, Lindor's talent level at his age group versus what Williams and Acuna has is still night and day difference. I mean, we're looking at guys that we're excited and hopefully can be more than contact and gap-to-gap hitters at the major league level versus Lindor, who right off the riff became one of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball that hits from both sides. So, falling off as hard as Javi? No, Mike. No, only a casual has that viewpoint. We've been through slow starts already with Lindor in the past, and we know the type of talent that he is. Again, I think that's a very silly notion. If we go all year and Lindor's batting like Javi, then we have a different discussion. Until then, I digress. It's early season, y'all. Taking like Lindor won't improve. Come on, I think that's more the thing that stands out to me is the fact that we've literally seen Lindor go through early struggles with the Mets and overcome them. We've seen him be a elite talent for multiple years now. Why are we going to just automatically think that those things don't matter now because he has been hit? And on top of that, Lindor has still been hitting anywhere from 260 to 300 since he first got his standing O at Citi Field this year. So that's another thing to throw in this conversation too. We shouldn't take him for. I agree, and I think Mets fans do a great job at taking our personal talents for granted. 100%. All this talk about Lindor and Alonso trades because they are not heading at present. Facts. How much bad years did other stars have? Ozzie Smith, Bubby Harrelson. So, of course. Let's also not forget Carlos Beltran. Didn't have it easy right away when he was here either. He overcame those obstacles. Of course, he didn't overcome that breaking ball that we saw there in 2006, but a lot of people struggle with that too. And we shouldn't put all that pressure on his shoulders when if anyone else strikes out in that spot, we put the blame on them, right? So that's a discussion for actually not even another day, just a discussion I'm not going to bother to have because it's so water under the bridge at this point. To be fair, Ozuna had like one hit for April and ended with 40 homers. Oh, 100%. This time last year, every Braves fan wanted Marcell Ozuna off their team. Marcell Ozuna went on to have a tremendous home run season. Ozuna currently is one of the best sluggers in Major League Baseball as well. Again, you might not love the guy, and he might get off to slow starts, but just because you don't love the guy or because they get off to slow starts means that you should evaluate them as a season's whole. Because that is how you lose talents too soon, and that's how you end up regretting saying, wow, I really let the month of April dictate my fandom for a guy that's now killing it elsewhere because our dumbass front office decided to jump the gun and part ways with him too soon. Last situation you ever want to put yourself through. Not only if you're a Mets fan, but just any type of fandom for that matter. Lindor winds up with the highest shortstop production, doesn't he? I think that's going to go to Mookie Betts this year, National League. Betts is not great defensively at the shortstop yet, but he will find his game. Mookie Betts is now the man to beat shortstop-wise in the National League. I I think it's fair to say that. I think it's Betts, Lindor, Turner in that mix for sure. Ellie De La Cruz, of course. Ellie plays shortstop, right? Ellie's playing at an MVP caliber level right now. Making sure I'm not misspoken on the Ellie De La Cruz front. Let me double check. Yeah, he's shortstop. Ellie's playing great. But again, though, the way that Ellie's playing great, and I hope it continues, is the way that I expect Lindor to play on a consistent basis once he finds his groove. Ellie's going to have more highs and lows in the season with his, young and experienced still, that I think you're going to see Lindor still be the guy when he's right and gets his swing exactly how he wants as a player that you're like, right now, 9 times out of 10, you're still taking Francisco because he's the better overall player. But Ellie De La Cruz is fantastic. Mookie Betts, of course, is the leader in that list. A lot of awesome talents there. A lot of. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think that's another thing, too. It's perfectly fine if Francisco Lindor ends up becoming, say, the third or fourth best shortstop in the National League. Obviously, you want your $300+ million man to play to the caliber of the best, but it's not to discredit others, Ellie already has 12 stolen bases, 300 average, 7 bombs, north of 20 RBIs. It's a tough thing. It's tough when you have these superhumans coming out of the woodwork the way that we see with the Ellie De La Cruzes, the O'Neal Cruzes when he's right too. Great talents in Major League Baseball. The MLB season is very long. Very, very long. Yes, that is correct. And that's exactly why we can't... Again, every Mets and every baseball fan is going to have their respective opinions as to jumping the gun on things. How much stock should I put into this? And of course, especially as someone who's a content creator that makes a living talking about this on the day-to-day, of course we're going to hone in on those hot button topics, some controversy, and just kind of the fell swoop of what's going on with the team currently. But we should never lose track of the bigger picture, which is a 162 season, right? As I was making the graphic, as I was making the thumbnail for the show today, game 23, I was just saying in my mind, this is absurd. I'm going to be a father in the ensuing months, and then you add in the amount of games to be played. There's just so much. I was just thinking, as a whole, this year is going to be absolutely nuts. But it's just, we cannot forget the fact that we still have 40 more games until we have 100 left on the season, right? That's crazy. And as Ron put it beautifully, Ron Darling, of course, Mets legend, and they're with Gary and Keith on the broadcast, spoke over the past couple days how every single team in Major League Baseball is going to win 60 games and lose 60 games. What you do with the remaining games is key. And that's 100% true. What do you do with the remaining 40 games? Do you take advantage? Do you find yourself ahead? Do you get in the 80-90 win column? Or do you find yourself on the losing end? So viewing it from that perspective too is very, very interesting. Maddie, I'm personally not sharing that at the moment just because I think it's going to make it for more fun things once the time is here. And you'll understand that too once we get to the time period of when the kiddo's actually here. So I'll leave you with that for now. Appreciate you asking though. That's a great perspective, right? Thinking about it this way. Okay, Mets are going to win 60 games this year. They're going to lose 60. What do you do with that remaining 40? What do you do there? And that is where we hope that the Mets can pounce, become a playoff caliber team, be a buyer at the trade deadline, push for playoffs, be above 500. Anywhere from the 84 to 88 win category should have you in that spot. Is it going to be more on the 84 end? Is it going to be more on the 88 win? And that all will be indicative on how much of a hunt we're in with the with the NL Central, which you could rightfully argue is one of the most difficult divisions in baseball right now. With the NL West, same applies too. This year, I will say this. This year, playoff-wise, in my opinion, is more difficult than you can argue than previous years. And the reason why I say that in regards to the National League and the expanded playoff format is as follows. You have the National League, that consists of a NL West, where if you kick the Rockies aside, you got yourself the Padres, the D-backs, the Giants, and the Dodgers. That's a four-headed monster of teams competing for playoffs that are pushing for playoffs, where 3 out of those 4 may very well make playoffs. NL Central, Pittsburgh Pirates, Milwaukee Brewers, who are exceeding so much early expectation. I'll be the first to say that, I'm not going to say I was wrong because it's very early on, but they're off to a great start. The Reds, the Cubs, you got a four-headed monster there. You have a four-headed monster, the Pirates, the Cubs, the Reds, and the Brewers. All four teams right now that are playing at a playoff caliber level right now. Then you bring in the National League East, the NL East. What's crazy about the NL East? What was once the best division in Major League Baseball for a long period of time, the strongest, the most difficult, you could rightfully argue, is one of the more weaker ones in all Major League Baseball. Especially, you can argue, it's the weakest currently in the National League because there is two teams currently in the NL East that are looking like bottom feeders in both the Miami Marlins and the Washington Nationals. So then you have the three-headed monster in the Phillies, the Mets, the Braves, where they're going to battle things out. The Braves are likely going to win the division. The Phillies will be in the playoffs, and that's where the Mets find themselves in that category. So for the Mets here, with the assumption that the Phillies and the Braves do their thing, get in there, it's imperative for the Mets to make sure that they can take advantage and overtop some of these lesser experienced teams like the Reds, like the Pirates, even the Cubs to an extent there in the National League. The Brewers have had plenty of experience. They've just done nothing with it, and they now are in not a full retool, but they're in somewhat of a retool at the moment with who's headlining their rotation, which is Freddie Peralta, not Corbin Burns, and of course a lot of different pieces that they work in their dynamic with their bullpen and their lineup. But then on the National West side of things, the D-backs, while they haven't played their best baseball yet, they're going to, for sure. The Padres are going to be in that mix for sure. They're going to play some entertaining, loose, fun baseball this year, even though I think they're going to be on the outside looking in. The Giants, I think they find themselves in the same category, but especially the Giants and the Padres, those are the kind of teams where the Mets are going to be looming around. So a series like this is very important. You got to beat up on these teams. Any team that pretty much is fringe playoff caliber, the Mets are right in that mix with. So it's very important that they can beat up on them, win as many series as possible. And that goes without saying for every team, obviously. But I think that's why you could rightfully argue this year versus the past couple of years right now that we have seen with the expanded playoff format in the National League, I think you could rightfully argue is more difficult this year than in years past to crack. But again, we'll see. Let's see. Seth, how you doing, my man? Happy to have you in here. How you doing, brother? Great member. Let's see here. Wardy, are you coming to Pittsburgh for Mets-Pirates game in July? I'm going to tell you right now, if it's in Pittsburgh, probably more on the looks of no, just because at that point, I'll probably be at least a month in with the kiddo, and Pittsburgh is not around the corner from me. I reside in Pennsylvania, but I'm 4.5+ hours away from Pittsburgh. I'm also going to be residing plenty throughout the summer in an area that's an additional hour away from that. So I'm going to go on a limb and say if I'm a betting man, which I know I am with my great friends at BetUS, and say no, I will likely not attend that series in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. But it's not because I don't want to. Timing will likely not be on my side. I will be fortunate and lucky enough to hit the amount of games at Citi Field I plan to this year, and same thing with Citizens Bank Park when the Mets are in Philly. So outside of that, going to be very difficult. This year will be more difficult than any other year I've had, just regarding availability to travel and to attend these things. My goal this year is to just hopefully have a bunch of games at Citi Field, hit them with you guys, pop some drinks, have a great time. I want to do a watch party or two at some bars in the area, so be on the lookout. That's something I'm going to be working on this summer. And same applies with also having at least a game or two where, we can hang out pregame tailgate. Of course, there, let you guys know I'll be there. Maybe I'll be in the marina lot with the 7 line, hanging. We can pregame, play some cup pong, whatever, play some cornhole, which I'm an absolute dog in, so be prepared. The more the drinks are flowing, the better I am. That's just how it is. And many of you guys, I'm sure, can relate. Water, of course, to my friends under 21 here watching the show, because they don't know what alcohol is, obviously. But getting on to the final remark I'll share with this, and also having, ideally, what I would love this year at some point, I just need to get it figured out still and fully, is attending a game where I can basically have a designated section where I either am able to purchase a group of tickets to resell to you all, or to just let you know in like weeks in advance that I will be in this specific section for a game. So please come get tickets and we can all sit and hang out together. PNC Park is beautiful. I was there in 2021 when Edwin Diaz gave up the Grand Slam walk-off to Jacob Stallings. The only time I've been at PNC Park. I was sitting front row right behind Mets dugout. Heartbroken. But no less, very much appreciate The ballpark, it's beautiful. I'm a Steelers fan, so I love Pittsburgh, love the area. Just easier said than done to get there, unfortunately. LFGM, you heard it, nobody. LFGM, brother, hope you have a great one. Krennic should replace Hauser. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets certainly give a leash to Krennic. It's going to be interesting to see when he's fully ready to go, once he's done with his rehab in the minor leagues at the moment. Jorge Alfaro is a current free agent, that's true, but what is Jorge Alfaro? He's not great defensively, and that's where we're going to have issues. Alfaro is more of a bat-first guy as well. Think of like when the Mets signed Gary Sanchez, in which I'm sure Gary's going to get his defense right now that he's in that beautiful lab with the Brewers. The Brewers have single-handedly made William Contreras, a guy that we just hated during his time with the Braves, to now quite literally one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball. Contreras went from being a net negative defensive player to one of the league's best and most improved framers and overall blockers. So many great things to say about what the Brewers do operation-wise. Do I give relationship advice, Eugene? No. I certainly do not. Trust me. You don't want it from me. I'm very grateful about the relationship I'm currently in, but it does not mean that I'm going to be the one to give you advice. If you guys want relationship advice with Wardy, you guys can get a little GoFundMe started or something. If we see that there's enough backing, maybe that could warrant that happening. Whatever problems you may have going on, Eugene, though, I wish you the best. Prayers sent your way, my friend. And God willing, everything does work out, whatever it may be. Wardy, Sevy, 2.5 walks, plus 220. What you think? Let me put this, Daniel. It's up to you. Do you want to bet on Sevy not doing well? Because that's essentially what you're doing. Do you like the reverse psychology thing that by betting on it, even if it hits, it's a win-win for you? Because if Sevy walks 3 guys today and they still win, you're feeling electric. If they lose but he walks 3 guys today, at least you're coming out with money. Like, wherever you stand, let me know. But, I mean, at plus 220 for a Mets rotation that struggled mightily to command the zone, I don't hate that at all. I don't. I think that's actually a solid bet to place. At 220 odds, if I was feeling it, I'd probably do that. Yeah, if you're asking for my opinion, I'd probably do that. But, again, I'm not a betting expert. I love my friends at BetUS, but I always suggest bet responsibly because at the end of the day, you don't know until you know. So that's going to do it for the live show, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Mets game starts in right around 15-20 minutes from now. So I'm going to get out of here, get myself situated for the evening. I wish you all well. Be on the lookout. We will be alive, of course, for a post-game coverage tonight, hopefully after a Metropolitan victory and an evening up the series. Hopefully not a third straight series not series loss, but a third straight loss and a series loss to get into. No less, everybody. Thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate it. And I will see you all mere hours from now, or if you don't chime in until, say, tomorrow because you're going to bed tonight like a normal human being on the East Coast and don't stay up all night, make sure you wake up and start your day right by checking out our post-game segment. Win, lose, or draw, doesn't matter. Make sure to check it out. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your boy, Wardy, signing out. Let's go, Mets, baby. Peace out, folks. Let's even up this series.